You need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here. Yeah, looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. We need more dogs.
And welcome back to the latest and greatest episode of the 7 Points Podcast. My name is Jayden May, joined as always by my co-host Quentin Crisco, and joined by a very, very special guest, Rivers McCown, to talk a little bit of AFC South, and he's going to help us talk Texans. So where can we find you, Rivers, and what do you do?
So my main job right now is editing and writing for NBC Sports at RotoWorld. So for fantasy stuff, that's kind of where I've settled lately. Also, still write for FTN Almanacs. I'll be doing all the AFC South chapters this year. So that is it's a lot of focus in the AFC South for the last 10 years for me.
All of the chapters on the AFC South. Now, I've loved your guys' work from the Football Outsiders days on, like with the Almanac, and y'all do great stuff. That focus on the entire AFC South, like you said, you probably know it very well at this point, not just on the single season aspect, on the team building aspects for each of these teams, but we're talking about the Texans to start this off. Rivers, how long have you been a Texans fan?
How long have I been a Texans fan? 2002. I was 17 years old when they brought the team to town.
Yeah, from day one. Now, where do you rank your excitement for this season with any other seasons that you can think of that might be up there with it?
I was definitely more excited last year. I was more excited in 2012 for sure, because that was like the year when everything thought it could come together. But I'm not unexcited for this season. Definitely has a chance. Just you're kind of relying a lot on the unknown on offense.
Sticking with the offense, can you talk to me a little bit about this offensive line? What the general thought process was here. Now, I've never been someone who, I don't know, maybe I was going against the grain a little. I always thought Laramie Tunsil got a little more praise than he necessarily earned for as gifted as he was. But to move on from him, to switch to Cam Robinson there, make some of the changes they've had here, what are your kind of thoughts on the outlook for this group?
I think that whatever was happening last year, Nick Caserio decided he didn't want no part of that ever again. Because they didn't just get rid of Tunsil, they got rid of Kenyon Green, and they got rid of Shaq Mason as well. So you see that this is almost a brand new line, especially when you consider moving Titus Howard inside the guard, which I feel like is the most sure thing of all these new guys. And I'm not really a fan of where this wound up. Like, it just feels like the Texans threw a bunch of things at the wall and are hoping some of it sticks. But I also, if you look at last year, like, it's not like they can get a whole lot worse than they were last year.
Right. Well, and I mean, I was kind of surprised by the Shaq Mason movement as well. Like the Tunsil movement is surprising, but like I felt like, you feel like you can get assets for him. The contract aspect, I kind of get that. The Shaq Mason one, every time I've actually flipped on his tape, I felt like I saw a pretty good football player out there. So that one surprised me, but I'm curious about Juice Scruggs at right guard now, because was the idea when he was drafted for him to be a center? That was my understanding, even though I know at Penn State he played both spots.
Yeah, the idea was that he'd be the center. For whatever reason, in 23, they wound up giving him left guard instead, I think, because Kenyon Green got hurt. And they were like, well, this is our best option for the best five. And then they started him at center last year. And once again, what's our best five? It feels like Caserio really values this versatility. And it just feels like a lot of these guys get thrown into spots where they're not supposed to be in the end of the game. And we wind up with kind of this mishmash of what should be good offensive line play in theory, and it kind of doesn't wind up getting all the way there.
I mean, trust me, as a Bears fan, I know that feeling where it's like, in theory, it can work, but it just doesn't seem to work. Now, a small part of me does love the fact that it keeps getting Jarrett Patterson opportunities, because I was way higher on him than I probably should have been in the draft class that he came out in. But when I shot over this graphic to you, one thing that you said was you put Jaden Higgins at the outside receiver, the number 3 receiver out there. What do you think are some realistic expectations for Jaden Higgins this year as a rookie?
I mean, I think he's going to play more snaps than Kirk or Jalen Well, just in the sense that he'll play outside, and I think he'll block a lot. I don't know that he's going to be, catching 80 balls or anything. I think we might see like a 50, 600 kind of season from him. But I do think he's going to get a lot of playing time on the outside as a pure blocker type. And, hopefully by the end of the year, you look back at it and you say, okay, well, he's developed a little bit and playoff time comes and you can trust him one-on-one. I think that's kind of the end goal here.
Now, Jay, do you have any thoughts on the Texans offense here for Rivers?
Yeah, I was going to say a second ago that I remember 3 years ago we were talking about how they were building this offensive line, and me and Q were both really excited about the future of that offensive line, and it just didn't seem to work out, kind of like you said. So hopefully
they throw assets at this thing. They throw assets at this thing like crazy.
Yeah. So
they draft a guy in the top 75 every year.
Right.
They paid Tunsil. They paid Titus Howard. They paid Shaq Mason, and just what do you get? Not much.
Yeah.
Every time I see people talking about how you just have to build the offensive line, I'm like, it's not. Look at the Texans. Look at the Bengals. Like they're just throwing stuff at it, and it still is just not taking. There's something more than just paying guys to it.
Yeah, but I mean, so outside of the offensive line, I really like the Christian Kirk addition, especially if Nico Collins can stay healthy. And then me and Quentin both have been huge believers in CJ Stroud ever since he got drafted. So look to see a good third-year jump for him, I think. I think last year I made a little bit of a sophomore slump, but he wasn't bad by any means. Probably expected a little bit more, but hopefully that offensive line plays a little bit better. What are you most excited about with this group as far as depth goes? I mean, you got some names at the wide receiver position, but it seems like they just can't keep wide receivers healthy down there in Houston either.
Well, I mean, I'd be remiss to not mention Nico Collins because that's the most exciting thing pretty much every game he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Noel a lot in the draft. I would have taken him over Higgins, actually. Like that's how much I was pumping the hopium on him. So to get him in the third round, that's very exciting. I don't know if he's going to play that much with Kirk kind of in front of him, but I think they kind of traded for Kirk, and then there was noise that there was like, oh, well, maybe they'll extend him. And then to the draft, you get Jalen Noel. Like, do we need to extend Christian Kirk? I don't know. So I think that they're going to pound the middle of the field this year again with Stroud. That's kind of what he's always preferred anyway. And yeah, I think Kirk is a big beneficiary of that. I think that's an astute point for sure.
Now you're saying you think they're going to pound the middle of the field, and we talked a little bit about maybe a bit of a sophomore slump from CJ Stroud last year. How much would you attribute some of that to the offensive coordinator questions last year and kind of, he's gone now, but like having Nick Caley coming in, what type of system is he running compared to what you guys saw the last 2 years?
So this is interesting because Nick Caley has had one press interview since he has been hired, and he didn't really say a whole lot during it. So you're kind of just like grasping at straws, trying to figure out what's going to happen. The one big clue we have is that Stroud came out in, I think, his first OTA, and he said something along the lines of like, I finally have ownership of this offense. I can change plays at the line of scrimmage. I can go hot. And that's something that we didn't really focus on very much the last 2 years here, which like knife and Bobby Slowick's back for sure. But I do think that has a lot of the bearing, a lot of the brunt of last year's problems came from that. And I am excited, if not a little bit scared, because of how bad the line looks on paper to see how that plays out.
I will say about your guys' line, like I liked Blake Fisher in last year's draft. I liked Juice Scruggs 2 years ago. I liked Jared Patterson 2 years ago. And I mean, I think Ariante Ursary is a solid pickup at pick 48 of a guy who is now your sixth offensive lineman on top of adding Trent Brown. Like I see some depth there that works, but kind of like you said a little bit of, and I got to earlier, I think there's a lot of chemistry that goes into O-line that be interesting to see grow. But I'll stop harping on O-line. I love talking about it. But looking at the running back room, can we expect another huge season from Joe Mixon, you think? Or do you think we're going to see a bit more of a variety in there with like, actually, I mean, I'm going to change this question a little bit. I loved Dameon Pierce 2 years ago. And then Joe Mixon comes to Houston and kind of just becomes the guy. And Dameon Pierce, it felt like, to me, as a guy just watching Red Zone, felt like when he got his opportunities, he made some big plays. But what are your vibes on how Dameon Pierce is going to fit into this room, or is it just Joe Mixon's to take?
I mean, when they drafted Woody Marks in the third round or the fourth round, they traded up for him. I feel like that was kind of admission that, I don't know that Dameon Pierce belongs here very much. And I agree with you. I think he's shown, in the kickoff return game and, kind of gap scheme stuff that he's a very good back. He's just a poor fit for what the Texans ran the most the last couple of years, which is zone. He's not really a very good zone back. And so, he got even less playing time. He got kind of pigeonholed by that. When he was on the field, defenses were like, okay, they're running gap. Let's stop the gaps. So, yeah, it's one of those things. I think he's got a chance to, have a second contract worth talking about, but I don't know that I'd ever see him as like a, top 20 back in the league or anything.
You see, that's not totally the answer I wanted to hear, because I wanted to hear, he's a great fit for his own scheme. I don't know why they don't use him when they trade him to the Bears, but so that gets me a little discouraged there. But I think we can.
For GT, that was it.
yeah. But I think, Jay, anything else on the offense you want to touch on, or I think we should jump over to the defense?
No, I just love CJ Stroud. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, we're both big CJ Stroud guys, or at least like in that draft class, we were like CJ Stroud over Bryce Young all day, and then we were very proud that it worked out the way it has. But let's look at the defense here, and
got some studs on defense.
You do. Let me just ask you, Rivers, what stands out to you about the Texans defense versus the rest of the AFC South or the NFL?
I just think they have a very potent combination to play with and be aggressive with. Like when they send Anderson, Hunter, Autry at you, and on the outside you've got Petrie, Lassiter, Stingley, like it's actually a little difficult when they play press to get passes off. And it becomes a very boomer bust game when D'Amico's really calling the plays to stop a top offense. So it becomes very exciting. And sometimes you get games like that Chiefs game in the playoffs where one wide receiver catches a ball all day. And sometimes you get games like the Bills early last season where Keon Coleman's catching fourth down passes and taking it to the house because D'Amico's not playing it safe. He's coming right at you.
Yeah, he really subscribes to the attack first mentality, right? And actually, it's one of the things I love about his defense, and defense coordinators like him who do that. We're bringing the fight to them. We're not sitting back and waiting for it. If you were going to beat the Texans defense, how would you do it?
If I were going to beat the Texans defense, I would try to isolate their linebackers in coverage and really play with them, because Alshire has shown that he will blow coverages here or there, and Toto is a good zone defender, but he can't run with anybody all that well. So it's always like, when you talk about stuff like this, it's like, oh, just target the linebackers. It's very easy. It's not really that easy, but I think that's the best way to attack this unit for sure.
Right. When I first started writing like keys to games or whatever, like anything along those lines coming up to a game, I found that I kept coming back to either attack the defensive tackles because they're not good against the run, or isolate the linebackers in coverage for team after team after team. It was like, wait, if it's this, like I need to come up with something more original. I can't just do this for everybody. But
you just play five wide and then you get the linebacker in coverage. That's how it works. Yeah. Nobody's ever been hurt by doing that.
But so do you have any, I mean, speaking of what I just said, and this is one of the things I wrote for the Bears matchup with the Texans last year was, I think one of the ways to attack this defense is trying to hammer the football towards these defensive tackles, because I have questions about their their stoutness against the run. Am I incorrect on that take, or is there some validity to that?
I don't think that the guys they have now are like great shakes or anything. Like Rankin's coming off, a year where he kind of spent most of it on the illness list. So like he played really well in 2023, but coming off a bad year. I don't think he's like bad or anything. I definitely think that if you can get D'Amico to commit to the run more, you open up more of the deep ball, more of the post up the middle, that sort of thing. Like he has shown over the years that if you can gash him in the middle, he will switch, and that is priority one to make sure that he's stopping the run first. So from that standpoint, I agree, but also it's not like the Texans were a bad run defense either.
Right. It's I guess I should have prefaced that by saying this is a very good defense. So like when I'm talking the weak points of it, I feel like I need to put that asterisk there of like, you're not really winning a lot of different ways, but if you need to find you need to find ways to win always, right? But Jay, what are you thinking with this defense?
I think nationally, maybe not. I don't know about in the league circles itself, but nationally, I don't think Derek Stingley gets nearly the credit he deserves. I think he is the best, if not at worst, top 3 corner in the game. In the same draft as Sauce Gardner, a lot of people criticized the pick, including me, when the draft happened. I think he's been absolutely incredible for them on the outside. And then we talked about the CJ Stroud draft a minute ago, the trade back up to get Will Anderson. They believed in him, and he's been incredible on the defensive line as well. I love how they've drafted here recently. Jalen Petrie at the nickel. I love a lot about this defense on the edge and in the defensive backs. CJ Gardner-Johnson is just a dog out there. I mean, really sets the tone for an entire defense back there, defensive back as well. So I like this defense a lot, and especially when you look at every other team in the division. I don't see how they don't play great defense if they're able to run the ball like they should, like they want to. I'm assuming they're going to be a hard out in that division. So
yeah. Now I guess another question looking at the secondary that I'd have for you is, I was kind of surprised by the CJ Gardner-Johnson signing, because you had Kalen Bullock, and when I sent this to you, I had Jimmy Ward starting over him. You said I'd flop that. Now, so where does Jimmy Ward fit in with this? If I'm assuming that CJ Gardner-Johnson and Kalen Bullock are kind of the two safeties that you're going to have out there.
Well, I think Ward was hurt a lot of last year. He's hurt a lot of years, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think the way the Texans have played this is like, if we can get something from him, that's a bonus. And we're going to play some big nickel packages. We're going to play some dime packages. And Jimmy Ward's going to be involved in those. But I don't think that they're planning on him being a starter. I don't think they're planning on him staying healthy all season or anything. He's getting up there in age. So he's a culture guy, and he plays the game the way D'Amico wants it played. But he's also not someone that they want to rely on. Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's something that, I didn't quite catch just how much has he been playing. I knew that he got there. I knew that he was there with he came there with D'Amico, and I just wasn't sure. I knew I'd seen some highlights here and there, but that's not the stuff that you see every day, is how much this guy is actually being available out there.
You're not paying attention to the Texans injury report for the safeties? Come on.
I know. I got to step my game up, Rivers. I know. I got a fun question here for you.
All right.
One season only. So we're talking this year. You have to choose. You can only keep one of them. Will Anderson or Dannielle Hunter? Who are you keeping?
I'm keeping Will Anderson.
What gets you there?
I think there's something about the way he plays, like the fierceness that he plays. Like Dannielle Hunter is a physical marvel, don't get me wrong, but I think Anderson's tenacity gives him a little bit of a boost for me. I think he's the one who's going to finish those sacks. I think Hunter is the one who's going to get the sacks going, but isn't necessarily going to, if somebody else pressures the quarterback, step up and chase quite the same way that Anderson is.
I think I would land on Will Anderson as well. I just know that Dannielle Hunter has for years been such a good football player that I think,
he was stout last year too.
Yeah,
I love Dannielle Hunter. Don't get me wrong, but also the moment from last season that I have in my brain forever from him isn't going to be a sack. It's going to be Lamar Jackson like juking him out of his shoes on the sideline and then throwing a touchdown.
okay. That tracks.
That one hurt. That one
yeah,
hurt.
I'm sure. One more question I got for you on this defensive line is a guy who, I haven't had the chance to ask one of our guests about in previous years, and a guy who, according to PFF grades, isn't all that good, but keeps getting paid and keeps landing on rosters. That's Folu Fadakasi. And I haven't dove into his tape that much to really tell you what he's good at. How much do you know about Fadukasi and what his kind of strengths are out there?
I mean, we considered putting him on the top prospect list, I think, after his first season. Because Football Outsiders, now FTN, Almanac does a list every year of the top 25 guys who were drafted after the second round or something like that, less than 500 snaps. And we really liked his run defense. We thought he played really well with the Jets early on in his career. He's kind of bounced around a little bit, but I think he sheds well. He had some good plays in that Chargers playoff game for sure, especially early. And I wouldn't consider him a weak point at all. I just don't think he's like built to last in the sense that he can play more than 20, 25 snaps without gassing out and starting to give up ground.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense as to, and great. I've noticed with like PFF, their grades to nose tackles tend to be kind of a bit more, I want to say, and this is just my opinion, variable than some other positions where I'm just not quite sure why guys are grading the ways that they are. And it becomes just a question for me there. And I was wondering if Fadukasi might be one of those guys who it's like, maybe you don't get the plus grade for holding up a double team with only giving up 1.5 yards, but like that is a plus play if the linebacker got kept clean and got in the backfield type thing.
Yeah, I don't know how PFF does that, like to a granular level. I will say I feel like their grades are very descriptive rather than prescriptive. Like,
yeah,
I can't. When I see somebody with a 72.8 grade, I'm like, that means that in that system at that point, the plays they made were of a 72.8 player, not that's a 72.8 player.
Right. Yeah. And I think a nose tackle is a spot where that really, the light comes in a bit more on it. But let's take a look at these odds. And so we're talking win total at 9.5. Rivers, outside just gambling, we don't need to talk about the odds on that, but like 9.5 wins. Do you think that's fair for the Texans here? Do you think that should be a little higher, or do you think that maybe it's a little too high?
I don't know. It's hard to say without really having a good sense of what this offense is going to look like. Like, this is one of the major mystery boxes of the season to me, like not even just on a AFC South level, but like an entire NFL level. You have a first-year coordinator who's never called plays before. You've got an offensive line that's basically brand new. And now you're going to fit Christian Kirk and some rookies in next to Nico Collins. And, I can see looking at it from the outside and being like, oh, that's a lot going on. I kind of feel better about it than I think most people do. So I'm more inclined to go over 9.5, but I'm also not like dead set clinging to that as if like, oh man, my priors are so deep on this. I'm so convicted. That's just my lean.
Okay. And if Nico Collins stays healthy, over under 1,500 yards, you think?
I think under. I think under.
Where would you set that line?
If you told me he played all 17 games, I'd put it at about 1,450.
Okay, 1,450.
Yeah.
Okay. Jay, any thoughts on the overarching aspect of the Texans?
I would probably take the over. I believe in CJ Stroud. I believe they find a way to get it done. I think they should be able to win their division games. I got to look at the entire schedule, but I think 10 games is absolutely doable. My biggest thing is staying healthy with this team. I mean, Joe Mixon's not young by any means. Nico Collins hasn't been able to stay healthy. So that would be my only concern. I think they have a good enough defense to where if they have weeks where their offense struggles, I think they can hold teams under 20 pretty realistically most weeks. So just need a little bit of burst coming from somewhere, whether that's special teams, whether it's a big play from somebody. So with all that, I like the over 9.5. And if Nico Collins stays healthy for 17 games, I like him to be in that offensive player of the year discussion at the end of the year.
Okay. Now, Rivers, one thing you said earlier that's like it's been in my mind. I was like, maybe I should ask that, maybe I shouldn't. You mentioned about CJ Stroud saying that he didn't have the ability to call hots on certain plays and stuff like that. In your experience, and if you don't have a good grasp on this, feel free to just say so. But is that common in the league for quarterbacks, like second, third year quarterbacks, to not have certain abilities to change plays at the line of scrimmage or to call a hot route, or what might be kind of a limiting factor as to why an offense coordinator is doing that?
Well, that's kind of a Shanahan thing in general. Like, they want more control of that offense from the start. They want to call the entire thing from the sideline. And I think the way it played out last year, like, this offense has been very good in the NFL for 15 years, right? Like, it's not like this was like a surprise that somebody would try to actually develop a counter to it. I just think that Bobby Sloak didn't really adjust that well. And there were things that he could have done in season. There were bye weeks he could have used to change some things, and he just kind of stuck with it and wrote it out and kind of got what he deserved for that, I guess. Yeah. So I don't know that I would say that it's common around the league, but I think the Shanahan boys in general do like to do that.
Okay. Interesting. I do feel like I've heard, I mean, there was rumblings about Caleb Williams last year not having certain control over hot routes, like Jalen Hurts 2 years ago in Philly. It's kind of like, it feels like it keeps coming up, and I wasn't sure if it was the offenses or defenses adjusting to certain things or certain players. But I mean, I think that's an interesting aspect. There's just the Shanahan offense wanting to be in control of that. Now, I think that about wraps us up, Rivers, so we can get you out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. Join us. Can you tell everyone one more time where they can find your work?
Just go to rotoworld.com. I'm featured there all the time. Also, FTN Almanac coming out in early July, I think. So looking forward to that being out.
All right. And then one more question before you leave. If you had to pick somebody for a long shot, whether it's coach of the year, defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, MVP, anything like that, who on this team do you think could win an end of the season award?
This is only for the Texans, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My long shot would be Joe Mixon to lead the league in rushing yards.
Okay.
That's a spicy one. I like that.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's it for me.
All right. Thank you so much, Rivers. Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys. Good luck with the rest of the show.
Thank you. And you guys make sure to stick around. We're going to keep talking to Little Texans here, and then we're going to get into the rest of the AFC South. Jay, any other thoughts on the Houston Texans here?
No, I kind of, like I said, I mean, I love a lot about this team. We're big CJ Stroud fans on this podcast, and we talk ad nauseum about what this defense is. D'Amico Ryan's led defense. So to me, my biggest thing with this team is if you stay healthy, they're going to be right there at the end of the season competing in the playoffs. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I'm just okay. Random question. More important for the Texans over the next 3 years? Dalton Schultz or Joe Mixon?
Neither.
You gotta choose one.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if neither one of them are here 3 years down the road. So I would probably say Joe Mixon, just because if
The bang aspect.
if you can have a good formidable running game, I mean, that changes your entire offense. It changes everything you can do. I think Dalton Schultz is a fine tight end, but I think you can go get another Dalton Schultz. If Joe Mixon plays to the best of his ability, that's hard to come by.
That's something that feels weird about this Texans offense for me, right? Because I think they're going to be good, but it's like outside of Stroud and Collins, I'm kind of like, who's really good?
One of these rookie wide receivers has got to step up. Offensive line's got to play well, and you're going to need Schultz to catch about 60 to 70 balls probably for you, and kind of be that safety blanket that a good tight end can be for a quarterback. So yeah,
I wonder if Cade Stover becomes a bigger part of this offense this year.
I was thinking that when we were kind of going through it. I wanted to ask him about it, but completely slipped my mind. But yeah, and I think there's opportunities for a few young guys to do something in this offense. So yeah, it's going to be about health. It's going to be, I think Nico Collins staying healthy is huge for him. He can take so much pressure off all the other skill positions if he's out there every week, even if he's not catching 10 balls. Him just being on the field will open up other people.
Yeah, that's a must. And I mean, I do like their O-line depth. Like, and I kind of learned.
It's just how it comes together. Yeah, depth is fine.
I got hurt last year by buying too much into depth and not enough into starting talent.
Mm-hmm.
And this feels like one of those teams where it's like, I'm just like, I really like their depth and like the overall talent of like the top 8 blockers, but the top 5 still give me questions no matter which way you lay it. So like I'm really interested to see how that plays out there. And then on we didn't talk much of defensive depth. They got a lot of their edge depth is really, they're bigger guys. They're like their edge depth is like Danico Autry, Mario Edwards Jr., Dylan Horton. They're like
Derek Barnett. I loved him as a free agent a couple years ago, and he just never really turned into the guy you thought he would be, especially coming out of Tennessee. He was
he signed somewhere and sucked, and then the Texans traded for him mid-year last year.
Yeah,
and he came on hot. Like he started playing really well.
Yeah, so I mean, if he can keep doing that, I mean, that'll be good for him as well. So, and then I love their depth at DB, especially like he was talking about. If those DBs can stay healthy,
their outside corner depth is very interesting to me because like Petrie, Ward, CJ Gardner-Johnson, they can all play the slot, right?
Yeah.
But like the outside corner depth, I mean, Stingley, Lassiter, and I mean, Darby's there. I'm not sure how much you really want to be playing Ronald Darby, but like he's probably as good of an outside CB3 as any team has.
Yeah.
But behind that, I mean, they just have, there's not much on the roster. So like that's it. One injury to an outside corner could be trouble by my eyes. But I'm just interested to see how that plays out just based on what's on the roster right now.
Yeah. And I couldn't find a bet for rushing totals for the end of the year. So I'm trying to squeeze that in somewhere. So see what I can figure out later on.
Now, all right, you're betting any of these bets for the Texans, the win total, the playoffs, division, Super Bowl. What are you taking, Jay?
Honestly, I would probably like them maybe for Super Bowl, but maybe to win the AFC. With how deep the AFC is, if they get a path where they maybe avoid the Chiefs, maybe somebody knocks the Chiefs off early, which I mean hasn't been done since Patrick Mahomes has been there, and then kind of meander their way in. I mean, I think they match up pretty well against anybody, so I could see a route where they're like a 4 seed and they kind of mosey their way through, and some of the big dogs knock each other off early and win that conference. So if I could get, I could probably find it real quick. Let's see.
AFC is plus 1,200.
Yeah, that's probably what I would look at, is just to win the AFC at plus 1,200. If I'm sprinkling, if I have to just put everything behind one, it would probably be the division at 110, and their win total at 10 wins is also plus 110. But I could see something going wrong and them only getting to 9 games and still possibly winning the division at that. So I'd probably feel a little bit better at the division at plus 110, even though you would think you got to get 10 wins to at least win the division. But with that division, I'd probably lean division over win total.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking win total 9, and like, to me, D'Amico Ryan's squad was a disappointment last year, and I don't think D'Amico Ryan's team is going to disappoint 2 years in a row. So give me the over 9.5. You can get an alt line at 10.5. I'll take that.
Yeah,
because that's probably juice it up a little over plus 110. That's where my head's at. I don't like, if I want to get some real juice. Yeah, I think AFC's the play. I'm not going to go that far with any real money, but a sprinkle, yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, and I got them 18-1 here, so I think I might just do that at 18-1 and put a little sprinkle on it. Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I bet that.
Like, let's see here. So I got Houston Texans over. Of course, they don't have 10.5 on the board. Over 11.5 is 320. But they don't even give you the option for 10.5. I'm just going to wait that out and see if I can get it later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, but I really like this team a lot. It's hard to dislike a team that has a good defense and a good young quarterback coming on year 3. So
I wish I'd asked Rivers about his thoughts of taking Woody Marks in the 3rd round.
Yeah, he talked to,
or I guess early 4th, whichever it was.
Did he talk to us about that in the pre-show, or did he just?
No, he mentioned it briefly, but we didn't press him on it at all. Like I that was one of the most shocking picks of the draft to me. So
they seem to like him. And I mean, historically, when there's guys been on the board that people thought they should take and they went with their guy instead, it's kind of worked out for him so far. So
the numbers don't really support that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Jalen Carter would be pretty good on this team too.
We're talking pick 116, brother.
True.